A useful way to think about software is through the ways that users interact with it. Two ways of interacting with software are viewing and editing data, but very often programs need to be able to perform actions. For example, in this page we have a button which, when clicked, will take people to a website. In this app, each item has buttons that increment or decrement inventory, and in this page, this button triggers a form. You may not have thought of it this way before, but opening a form is a type of action. In the form button's configuration, you'll see the action Show Form is enabled. These are examples of native Glide actions. In other words, they trigger things that happen in your app. But you can also trigger actions in third-party tools like Slack, Outlook, OpenAI, and much more. These integrations add a whole new dimension to your apps by triggering events in the outside world and bringing new functionality to your apps. You can learn more about the specifics of each integration in our docs, but in this video, we're going to look primarily at Glide actions and the action editor. There are many different actions in Glide. Mostly, they fall into 4 categories. Data actions use or change data. These include things like add row, set column values, upload image, or copy to clipboard. Navigation actions show or move users to different screens. For example, go to tab, go back, show notification, view address on map, or show edit screen. Communication actions do things like send text message or send email, and then there are advanced actions for more technical users. Actions can be triggered in a variety of ways: on components, on collections, and after submitting a form screen. Some components have actions and some don't. If a component has the option for an action, you'll see it in the component's configuration. Here we'll add an image component and make it link to a website. Now, when someone clicks on this image, it will take them to that website. The default action for clicking on a list item is to view that item's details screen. This is such a normal behavior that you might not have even thought of it as an action before, but you can change the behavior of list items by changing their action. For example, you could have a list of contacts, and when a user clicks on one of them, it would trigger the dial phone number action. Or you could have a list of inventory items, and when one is clicked, it decrements a number. As you can see in this app, collections can have many different actions. At the top of the list here, we have our main actions and a drop-down menu for even more. And each item has its own buttons to edit or preview, and then each of these has its own drop-down menu. Another type of action is the on-submit or after-submit action. After users add or edit or submit forms, you have the option to add actions which trigger on the submission of that form. For example, after a form is submitted, you could send an email to notify someone or update a value of another column. It's worth noting that the onSubmit action is totally optional. You can leave this blank and the form will still work. It will still add a row with whatever is submitted in the form. Now, mostly single actions will provide all of the power that you need for your project, but sometimes you'll want to trigger a sequence of actions, or trigger different actions based on different conditions. The action editor is where you create and edit all of your app's actions. If your app already has actions, or you've created actions in the layout editor, they'll automatically be listed in the left sidebar. Clicking on an action will load it into the action editor on the right. To create a new action, click the plus icon in the top left corner, and you'll be prompted to choose a data source for your action. The data source, or the table that you choose for your action, determines where that action can be used and what data it operates on. For example, suppose you want to create an action where a user can tap a button on an inventory item and then automatically send an email, and the email should indicate that the stock level is low and include the current stock level. For this particular action to work, it needs to know what stock item it is and the current stock level. So this action has to be made with the inventory table as the source. This also means then that this action can't be triggered on a screen that has a different table. For example, it wouldn't make sense to trigger this action on a team member's profile.
This means that although actions are reusable, they're only reusable on screens that have the same data source.
The first part of what makes custom actions powerful is the ability to have sequences of different actions be triggered, as opposed to just a single action. To add new actions to the flow, hover just underneath an action and click the plus button. To edit actions, click on the action itself. To reorder actions, click and drag the action to another place. And to delete actions, open the action and click the trash icon. Sometimes you'll want different actions to occur depending on a condition. To add a condition to one of your sequences, click the plus icon at the top of a sequence. Whatever conditions you set here will mean that the action sequence below will only run when your condition is met. If the condition is not met, the action sequence won't run. But this means that users will be clicking or tapping on buttons and nothing will be happening. So usually you want to create multiple conditions. To do this, we can add an else part to our condition. With this added, if the first condition in our action editor is not met, then the actions under the else section will be triggered. You can also add many different conditions to your custom action to create complex and powerful scenarios for your project. So that's a quick look at actions. We looked at single actions, component actions, list actions, onSubmit actions, and then how to build custom actions with sequences and conditions.